just hit start recording and I just realized I need to go change my shirt. Please hold. I'll be right back. It's kind of funny considering what the topic of this video is going to be, but a lot of what I have done this weekend that I recorded this video on November 9th, 2025, I have done quite a bit of fossil digging and ancient time period fossil excavation. Considering you clicked on the thumbnail, you probably already know kind of where I'm going with that, but if for some reason you happened upon this video and somehow you let autoplay recommend me of all people, stick around because I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Before we get into anything though, I would like to recommend that you follow the guidance of the road signs at the bottom of the screen. I must confess though that I'm probably going to leave this as channel members only content for some period of time, because though I recorded it quite some time ago, as of the time of recording this video, the most far out scheduled video is my Idearena episode on Return the Sun, and I do not want to jam two videos of this style of content back to back, so I'll probably hold this one in the tank for a little while and then it will become public. So if you're watching this while it's public, this was channel members only for at least some length of time. I don't really have any hard and fast rules set for myself for this kind of content release, but I just kind of wanted to put that out there. What do I wish to discuss today? Well, as we are all aware, a cataclysmic event took the majestic creatures known as the dinosaurs from us. I know, birds, blah blah blah. Much like I hope to be in the relative near future, as of the time of recording this video, the dinosaurs were wiped out by the KT Extinction event. For those of you who are Godzilla fans, you will probably know this as the meteor impact that killed the dinosaurs, and Godzilla survived in at least one variant of the MonsterVerse continuity. Because I don't know if technically Godzilla Awakening is canon to the MonsterVerse anymore, to the extent, of course, that any of the MonsterVerse tie-in comics even are canon to any extent. Anyway, today's video is an Idearena episode, and in order to not make me sound like a total madman for bringing up the KT Extinction event beyond trying to make a esoteric reference to some of the things that are currently unfolding in my life, I want to talk about my moveset for Gorosaurus, one of the most basic and yet most endearing kaiju in the Godzilla franchise, lexicon, universe, etc, etc. I don't really want to waste a whole lot of time on this because, as we shall see through the actual moveset draft that I kind of formulated for Gorosaurus, he's really not all that complex. But you know what? That's why we love him. Alright, here we go. As has been the case for the many individual monster movesets that I have covered on this channel in the past, please feel free to pause the video and read the text in the Microsoft Word document as I have it, because I will not read this necessarily verbatim. And I will absolutely try not to skip over any moves this time, like I did in that last episode. Per normal, I have a list of skins listed there, but I almost undoubtedly have provided video chapters for this video, so you have my permission to skip ahead to the alternate skins section if that is the only specific thing that you wish to consume from this content of mine. I would appreciate it though if you paid attention to the rest of it, please. As I noted there, despite being one of, I would say, the more popular kaiju from the Godzilla franchise's Showa era, there really isn't that much in terms of moveset potential that one can glean from the appearances of Gorosaurus that we have gotten. So to an extent, Gorosaurus's basicness in terms of actual moves given is not my fault. In a way, it's kind of Toho Company Limited's fault for not developing Gorosaurus and using him more fully. But at the same time, as I said, that's kind of the appeal of Gorosaurus, right? In terms of general strategy, I wouldn't use the term rushdown to describe Gorosaurus because he's not nearly quick enough, I feel, feel to warrant that kind of fighting game classification. But Gorosaurus is pretty much always on the attack, doggedly pursuing any opponent. I want to say through careful strategy, but this is just a written up hypothetical moveset for Gorosaurus in a sort of Golden Trilogy kind of fighting game environment. But I would hope that in general, my audience knows what I'm kind of trying to communicate through that. Like I said there directly, Gorosaurus is about persistence and dogged determination, and I think that is appropriate for the character as we have seen him portrayed. Intro, the Savage of Mondo, because Gorosaurus was native to Mondo Island in 1967's King Kong Escapes film. Quite a while back, I kind of drafted up a hypothetical Gorosaurus intro animation, which I should probably play right about now.
Gorosaurus.
That intro animation mock-up is kind of roughly the first 7 seconds, I believe I specify there. Yeah, 7 seconds. The first 7 seconds that Gorosaurus appears in King Kong Escape. And just because I want to be pretty snappy about this, the intro music, as you saw / heard in that clip, is King Kong vs. Gorosaurus 1 by Akira Ifukube from King Kong Escapes. In my personal experience, I think I associate that song more closely with the character of King Ghidorah / King Ghidorah. And so I was rather surprised because it has been a long time since I watched King Kong Escapes, at least prior to when I made those intro animations. And I was like, wait, isn't this a King Ghidorah song? So I guess we can logically conclude from that Gorosaurus is on the same level of threat as the Showa version of King Ghidorah. Gorosaurus, destroyer of worlds. Okay, so on to the actual moves themselves. So Bite 1 and Bite 2 are basically just Gorosaurus biting down in both directions. So right in front of this pectoral muscle and right in front of this pectoral muscle. Did I get that backwards? No, I got it right. I went over this the other day just to kind of make sure that I had everything written down right and that everything was sensical. Gorosaurus is a lot more simple compared to some of the monsters that I have covered in the past, and I want the video to be kind of punchy as a result of that. But as I said, I can always accidentally skip over things, or I can make spelling errors. If you notice anything, or if you have any comments in general on this moveset, I would very much appreciate if you pointed them out or made note of them. And then for the jab finisher, for the jab combo attack string, it is identical to jab forward, double bite. So like I say there, basically this move would just be identical to the press A and swing the Wii Remote right attack from Godzilla Unleashed on the Wii for the Titanosaurus character. I think basically it just looks like this. Gorosaurus lowers its head while biting, obviously, and then Gorosaurus would rear its head back up while biting again. Like I feel like I say very commonly in these movesets, reduce, reuse, recycle. If something's a good idea, reusing it doesn't necessarily hurt, especially if a certain fan project wanted to incorporate this character, and that's not the last time I'm going to say this in this video. For jab back, we have Snapback Bite. Basically, Gorosaurus bites in front of himself, and then he kind of quickly snaps back his jaws. The resulting reaction from the opponent is to be pulled in a state of heavy flinching, which basically would allow Gorosaurus to follow up on the attack landing. Jab up, we have Leaping Bite. As I noted there, I would basically just make this identical to Godzilla 2000's jab up kind of overhand punch, claw attack, whatever you would call it, in the base Godzilla Save the Earth. Because Gorosaurus does not use its arms, the animation would necessarily look a little bit different from the attack used by Godzilla 2000 in Save the Earth, but you'll probably notice we haven't gone over any punching attacks yet, and I wasn't really sure where I was going to talk about this, but I guess we could just talk about it here. Gorosaurus doesn't really have very big arms. I know lack of usable arms didn't really stop Pipeworks from giving Godzilla 90s punch attacks in the Golden Trilogy proper, but it just doesn't feel right to do that to Gorosaurus. Gorosaurus just doesn't really strike me as being known or recognized for use of his arms. And what's really the harm in being a little bit creative in order to respect the character more fully? I'm gonna have to go downstairs and get more Sunny D. Then for jab down, we have Skull Uppercut. If I do not remember correctly, I believe I gave a pretty similar attack attack to this concept to Hedorah in the last episode of Idearena that I recorded. In terms of functionality, this move basically just works like the uppercut moves given to Godzilla 90s, Godzilla 2000, Mechagodzilla 2, and Showa Gigan in the base Godzilla Save the Earth. But again, because Gorosaurus does not use his arms to do the attack, Gorosaurus lowers its head and then swings his skull up violently to do an uppercut with his Nugan. I feel like Gorosaurus's head and face, I don't know how to really describe it. Giving him a skull uppercut just feels right. Gorosaurus really didn't take a whole lot of time for me to devise a moveset for, and I guess that is partially because guilty as charged, I like Gorosaurus too, and I've kind of always wanted Gorosaurus to be playable in such as the Destroy All Monsters Melee, Save the Earth, Unleashed Golden Trilogy. Alright, kick 1 and kick 2 are both push kick left and right respectively, as I have described there. I have a little picture there too. I mean, Gorosaurus just does a basic push kick. I don't know how fast the animation would need to be. I don't know if that would be good in terms of the overall strategy, but I mean, it's just a basic kick 1, kick 2 combo. The kick finisher is identical to kick back, which is named Kangaroo Kick Lite. And yes, the light at the end of that, whatever you think that that is implying, I'm almost positive that is what I actually meant to imply by that kind of name for the attack. So Kangaroo Kick Lite is Gorosaurus performs a quick kangaroo kick that, while similar to his weapon attack, the regular kangaroo kick, the light version is a lot faster and it doesn't have any sort of super armor to speak of. Before we go on, obviously I don't want to forget any attacks in this recording session. So kick forward is Stampede. This is rather basic. It's basically just Godzilla 2000's kick forward rush down attack, which as I described there basically means it has the exact same function in the Gorosaurus context. I note obviously that in the fan mod project Godzilla Save the Earth Melee, they made it so that if you hold the button down after you do the attack, you can expend energy from your energy meter to draw out the distance that Gorosaurus travels. But I do note that Gorosaurus's version of this attack would necessarily move a little bit faster and thus carry Gorosaurus a decent chunk more of distance than for either base Godzilla Save the Earth, Godzilla 2000, or Godzilla 90s. Then we have kick up, leaping kick. I'm going to try to find video footage of this attack that I'm about to name, but as I've said before in the past, it's kind of hard to find some of these unless you very much are familiar with certain Godzilla-related gaming channels on YouTube. Basically, I would just have Gorosaurus's up kick move be Showa Mechagodzilla's B and swing up, kick up attack in the Wii version of Godzilla Unleashed. The only real notable difference is that I say that Gorosaurus moves a little bit further forward during the playing out animation of the attack. Don't think I had any real sort of strategic thought in mind for that, but it just felt right. Gorosaurus is not a mech and therefore is not as stiff as the Showa version of Mechagodzilla. I think was literally the sum and substance of it. And then kick down, we have Stomp. Rather basic. A lot of monsters had Stomp attacks in the base Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee and Godzilla Save the Earth games. I think the most important distinction as it pertains to Gorosaurus is that I note here that it does heavy flinch damage, whereas I'm pretty sure in Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth, it would put you into the stepped on a Lego animation. If I were to guess, the version of me that wrote this sometime in the past probably wanted to emphasize that Gorosaurus is all legs. And so kicking with this Stomp attack should be kind of more devastating, quote unquote, in comparison to the other basic Stomp moves for other monsters in this hypothetical environment. Then I imagine I'm going to just make a singular chapter for all of these because all of Gorosaurus's fierce moves that I have listed here are just reused moves from Godzilla 90s from the base Godzilla Save the Earth as I wrote it up here. Yeah, no, literally the fierce attack lineup that I have for Gorosaurus in this planned moveset is just copy, drag over, paste from Godzilla 90s and the base version of Godzilla Save the Earth. I don't know why, it just kind of felt right, and if such as Godzilla Save the Earth Melee decide to include Gorosaurus as a playable character, I feel like asset reuse like this would be perfect perfectly justifiable, if not just outright preferable. I know Gorosaurus didn't really use its tail in any of the actual movies, at least not that I remember, although I do have a pretty good memory. But this moveset plan kind of focuses Gorosaurus's special thing on kicking.
Kicking? Oh, I want to do some kicking!
And so having the unique character-specific thing motif for the Fierce button be tail attacks and basically ripping off Godzilla 90s in the base Godzilla Save the Earth just really felt like the only option I had left. If you have any better ideas, leave them in the comments. I know none of you are going to do that, not because my ideas are perfect, but because none of you watch my videos. Then for the weapon attack, we have Kangaroo Kick. Now, the weapon attack for most monsters is a beam weapon of some kind, say Gigan's I-Beam, or Kiryu's Mouth Maser Cannon, or Godzilla's Atomic Breath, but obviously Gorosaurus doesn't have a beam weapon and has not been given a beam weapon in any side media over the years. And unlike Godzilla Unleashed for the Wii, I outright refuse to machinate a beam weapon out of nowhere just for the ease of filling out the character's moveset. So I would highly recommend pausing the video when there is not a image on the screen and reading what I have written there. Basically, the idea is that the charge of Gorosaurus's primary weapon, pressing and holding the R1 button on a PlayStation DualShock or pressing and holding the right bumper on an Xbox controller, is that you're effectively charging up the potency of the actual Kangaroo Kick itself. So we went over Kangaroo Kick Lite and I noted that it did not have any super armor. If you're not familiar with what that means, basically super armor means you can hit them during the attack and it's not necessarily going to knock them out of the animation unless the attack that you hit them with while they're going through the super armored animation is more potent than the armor for their armored attack. And basically here, the Kangaroo Kick, the amount of super armor on the move scales with the amount of charge that you give to the move. Now, this is like the one instance where I think the mod Godzilla Save the Earth Melee speeding up the charging time for many weapon abilities is actually preferable to the base Godzilla Save the Earth durations for weapon charges, because this is a physical move and you don't necessarily want to be a sitting duck standing in the same spot for too terribly long while charging up the Kangaroo Kick. Mechanically, hopefully I'm explaining myself well. If not, hopefully the text on the screen is explaining it well. But just on a basic level, everyone and their mother who knows who Gorosaurus is and thereby has good taste knows this is a reference to the Kangaroo Kick scene in the original 1968 Destroy All Monsters. If I'm being honest, that's kind of the move that inspired pretty much everything about this character's moveset plan. Okay, yeah, I definitely gotta go downstairs. I gotta recharge.
Reload.
Wrap this video's recording up inside of 30 minutes because I have not done laundry once today, but in fact done it twice. Because much like how the KT event inspired the dinosaurs to die, the KT event in my life has likewise inspired me to clean out my basement. Also, I'm fully recharged. Between what I said and what's written there, hopefully I explained the Kangaroo Kick mechanically well enough. Now, this next one is a rather interesting one that I hope I'm going to be able to find video footage of. So, Gorosaurus's tap weapon ability is Fireball, and you're probably thinking, Henry, didn't you say that you weren't going to give Gorosaurus any extraneous and unnecessary beam weapon moves? Well, obviously this is not a beam weapon move, but it is a tap weapon projectile ability, and if you're anything like me, you didn't know about this thing, and it wasn't until I went onto the Wikizilla page for Gorosaurus that I found this out. In Godzilla King of the Monsters for the OG Game Boy, Gorosaurus shows up as an opponent of some kind, and for some reason, which even if you explained it to me, I would never understand, they gave Gorosaurus the ability to shoot fireballs at Godzilla the player, and I was confused, but much like in the case of the 1974 Showa Mechagodzilla, which I have previously done a moveset for, it kind of came up with a way way to distort and contort the idea of giving Gorosaurus a fireball attack like this to fit the gameplay strategy that I had conceived of for Gorosaurus. All of my videos are unplanned and generally unscripted, so I'm going to try to explain this. In the base version of Godzilla Save the Earth, both Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla 90s also have fireballs mapped to their tap weapon ability. But if you will recall, those fireballs travel in a straight line after you fire them. If my fist over here is Godzilla 90 slash Godzilla 2000's head and my head is the opponent, if I shoot the fireball at the opponent, normally it would just hit the opponent, right? But imagine a scenario where you shoot the fireball and then the opponent kind of steps back, it's gonna miss. One of the major differences, therefore, that I gave the Gorosaurus fireball projectile is that it doesn't really work like that. Even if I move back and the opponent reorients, the fireball would then change direction and come right for me. And unlike Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000's fireballs, Gorosaurus fireball does not do damage necessarily. I'm getting messages from my own KT event. Like I said, pause the video and read the explanation, but basically the Goro fireballs put you into a temporary and extremely brief dizzy slash stunned state, which allows Gorosaurus to close the gap between you as per the strategy that I kind of tried to give Gorosaurus here, however poorly I may have actually done that. So it's kind of a case different from some of the extraneous beam weapons seen in Godzilla Unleashed on the Wii, where, yeah, it might be a little bit strange, but all it really takes is some creative faculty to find a purpose for it as a power for Gorosaurus. I hope I did well. Then, for L1, R1, left bumper, right bumper, we have Shielding Scream, Gorosaurus' secondary ability, and this is kind of an at-will equip of super armor, not really tied to a specific attack, kind of a temporary status effect boost. The explanation isn't very long there. I'm not gonna draw out this explanation very long, it speaks for itself. Then, for Gorosaurus' primary ability, L2, R2, left trigger, right trigger, we have Burrow. Now, if you remember, Gorosaurus shows up in Paris in 1968's Destroy All Monsters in the place of Baragon, who was originally supposed to show up in that scene. And so, burrowing is kind of part of Gorosaurus' toolkit for that reason, even though it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I kind of tried to riff off of that. I was like, okay, so this is an ability the character has, but it's not Gorosaurus' thing. So how do I incorporate it? And when Gorosaurus shows up in King Kong Escapes, he kind of plays dead on the ground and sort of pseudo-surprise attack bites King Kong's legs and feet. And so how I did this, I do not know, but I recall that Biollante has a burrow ability in Godzilla Unleashed for the Wii, but it's not like the burrowing abilities for Baragon or Megalon. It's not a sustained, manipulatable course of action. It's just kind of like a short teleport that just so happens to involve the character going underground. And so my idea here was that you kind of tie in biting at King Kong's feet in King Kong Escapes with the Biollante teleport burrow from Godzilla Unleashed on the Wii, and it's kind of just a quick and easy way to burst a set amount of distance forward for some cost slash chunk of energy in your meter. Again, Gorosaurus isn't necessarily a rushdown character per se, but like I said, Gorosaurus kind of embodies dogged determination and pursuit of the opponent in its attack form. And so kind of like how I had to kind of reverse engineer a purpose for the fireball ability, I kind of had to do the same thing for the notion of burrowing as it pertains to Gorosaurus. But if you think that a more Megalon or Baragon-esque form of burrowing would make more sense, leave that in the comments. Tell me what you think. This is just my own idea. And obviously this game doesn't actually exist, at least at the time of recording, so this is really just me kind of throwing ideas out into the ether to see what sticks. Okay, I think I'm going to end up rapid firing some of these jump attacks as well. Jump punch is multi-bite drop. Basically, Gorosaurus jumps into the air and then nom nom noms as he goes down. Not really all that complex. Jump kick. This is actually rather complex though. So from a distance, it would probably look to you as just a copy copy of the jump kick attacks of, like I said, Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000 in the base Save the Earth. But Gorosaurus adds a little bit of technical fake out strategy to the move. So the move has a little bit of a longer wind up animation. And while Gorosaurus is kind of hovering in the air and winding its foot back, you can cancel the attack either outright, or you can just kind of cancel the wind up and throw the attack out rather fast. If you don't cancel it in either of those ways, you're going to get a more beefy, potent jump kick attack. But if you cancel it by pressing the button again, Gorosaurus just kind of stops messing around and throws the kick out really quickly. Or if you hit, I would presume, one of the guard or block inputs, Gorosaurus like cancels the attack entirely and just drops to the ground. I would imagine that animations and lag and whatnot would play a great deal of importance in whether or not it would make sense to have the jump kick for Gorosaurus be cancelable like this. But it just kind of felt right to me, because Gorosaurus is a kick character. That's his central motif. To give his jump kick a little bit more technical functionality. I don't know if that made any sense the way I said that. And his jump fierce is just the jump fierce for Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000 in Godzilla Save the Earth. Then, okay, we have a little bit, but not much, of a uniqueness for the grab. So Gorosaurus, as I said, does not really use his arms in anything that I have watched with the character in it, which, for the record, there is terribly too little of. The short version is that Gorosaurus has a pounce grab, as I call it, much like Baragon has in the base Godzilla Save the Earth, and Varan and Zilla are planned to have in the Godzilla Save the Earth Melee mod. Or, well, we know Zilla has a pounce grab because we have a trailer featuring gameplay of Zilla at the moment. But we do not have much of anything surrounding Varan in the confines of that project. But again, read my explanation. It's pretty self-explanatory. So for the kick throw, we have smashing stomp combo. Basically, Gorosaurus stomps twice with his left foot and then kind of steps off of the opponent and then does a punt kick with his right foot as he steps off of them. Don't know why, but I'm feeling like there's a King Ghidorah 1991 attack that has really meaty, blunt attack sound effects in the base Godzilla Save the Earth that I am thinking about going with this attack. But my mind is blanking. It's late. And then for the fierce throw, we have tail slam slap. So Gorosaurus kind of dismounts, turns around, and then just lands a really potent hammer down tail smack on the opponent as they lay there. And I would have it be that the attack does not knock the opponent away. It kind of just bounces them off the ground where they previously were prone, such that Gorosaurus has time to reorient and turn back around and potentially get a combo juggle on the airborne opponent as they're falling. Gorosaurus's complexity in terms of moveset is rather subtle.
But it's refined, it's subtle, it's very unknown.
Then for Gorosaurus's get-up attack, we have Seismic Shockwave. Rereading this description, I mean, it's basically just Gorosaurus gets up with a lot of force, whether he was on his back or on his stomach when the attack was initiated. But it is rather unique in that it does not sweep the opponent like, say, for example, the get-up attacks of Godzilla 90s or Godzilla 2000 in the base Save the Earth. I instead compare it to the pick-down attack that Baragon has in the base Save the Earth, where it kind of emanates a sort of ring of smoke that briefly dizzies the opponent, and much like the dizzying effect of the Gorosaurus Fireball move, the purpose of that is to allow Gorosaurus a moment to get in and attack you, or the opponent, whatever. I am not implying that Gorosaurus is specifically going out and targeting members of my limited audience. For Taunt 1, we have Agitation. Gorosaurus kind of stomps limply and shakes his head while hunching over before returning to his idle position. For some reason, I'm kind of thinking of the moment in Godzilla vs. Kong in the Monsterverse, where Godzilla kind of slams his tail into the ground, but obviously with the head hunching and whatnot. Taunt 2, Inquiry. Gorosaurus rears his head back and side-eyes the opponent while emitting a brief roar before returning to his idle stance. He's kind of just going like, really, bruh? I feel like he does that in one of the Showa movies. I just can't remember off the top of my head which one. I guess it would have to be either King Kong Escapes or Destroy All Monsters. And then for Taunt 3, we have Hesitance. Gorosaurus shakes its hands while roaring briefly. He hunches slightly and then he returns to his idle stance. I feel like I'm just going to put all of the taunts into one chapter. They're all really basic. Need more be said? Then lastly, we have a slew of skins, alternate costumes, in another manner of speaking. We have the basic Gorosaurus. I don't think there's really much of a difference between the King Kong Escapes and the Destroy All Monsters versions of Gorosaurus, so there's no real reason in separating them out. Then we have the Go Godman iteration of Gorosaurus. I have not watched Go Godman, but just based off of the picture that I did see of Gorosaurus' appearance in Go Godman, he looks like he has a little bit more of a yellow belly, not implying that he's a coward. Gorosaurus is anything but. If anything, he's a total Giga Chad. But if you don't think that that's a justifiable or reasonably good inclusion, let me know. Next, we have just a regular toy of a kind of brownish gold Gorosaurus. If you can't tell, since you can still see some of the moves up there at the top, Gorosaurus doesn't really have a whole lot of alternate appearances across all Godzilla media. A true tragedy, if you ask me. Then we have, I think this is called the Bullmark Gorosaurus figure, Bullmark X. It's basically just a cyan Gorosaurus with red highlights and red eyes. If you can't tell, this is one of the only basic recolors of Gorosaurus that I can find. Then we have a Godzilla Wars, Godzilla Kaiju Wars, some Godzilla card game from Japan only, where Gorosaurus is red. This is just a basic recolor as well. Then we have a recolor in black and white that is meant to reference the color scheme slash grayscale-ness of Godzilla King of the Monsters on the Game Boy, which the fireball move that we talked about earlier came from. Then we have a rather interesting set of skins. So the first one down here is Mecha Gorosaurus. So in the Godzilla Tokyo SOS Super Complete Works guidebook for Godzilla Tokyo SOS, I hope I didn't name it wrong, bunch of different Godzilla Kaiju are portrayed in mechanized form, and Gorosaurus is one of those monsters. So I think it would be rather appropriate to give the Gorosaurus character, as we have outlined here, a Mecha Gorosaurus skin. Also, doesn't that just sound cool? And then last but not least, this one's kind of a little iffy, I feel like, but it made sense to me.
To you! To me! To humanity!
I have Godzilla Terrestris from Godzilla Singular Point as an alternate skin for Gorosaurus here. If I'm not wrong, correct me if I am, I think Godzilla Terrestris was explicitly meant to reference Gorosaurus, and you can kind of just tell based on the design. I know if this were a Toho official licensed game, we probably wouldn't have alternate skins in the first place, but even if they did somehow and to some degree, I don't think they would allow one of the forms of Godzilla to occupy the moveset that is given to Gorosaurus in this context. But like I said, this one's kind of just for me. And in general, I'm sure you could give Gorosaurus a lot of different recolors, and it's possible that I missed some. So if I did, let me know, because this document is a living, breathing thing. As I have said in the past, some of the other monsters in this manual have had minor changes made to them, and if there were suddenly, hold your laughter, an upswell of support for a Writing Revisited video regarding the Idearena monster movesets that I've done, I can always make it a point to include any suggested skins for Gorosaurus in that hypothetical video, much like this hypothetical moveset. I ended up talking way longer than I expected about Gorosaurus. I mean, I guess I should just count my blessings, right? I mean, how often does one get to talk about Gorosaurus for a prolonged period of time? Even if it is just with you imaginary internet people that I don't know if actually exist or not, I enjoyed doing it. And it sounds like my laundry is still going, so I actually managed to do this rather expediently. Whether or not that will actually translate to expedience or shortened runtime in the final edited product, I don't know. But like I said, this video may be available for some time, however brief, for channel members. So at the very least, I'm hoping that at least one channel member enjoys the fact that I have embarked upon this righteous quest to describe a moveset for Gorosaurus in a sort of pseudo Golden Trilogy follow-up game. Genuinely, I don't know if we're ever going to actually see Gorosaurus become playable in a modern Godzilla fighting game. Gorosaurus really does feel like one of those monsters that Toho just wants to kind of bury and forget. Not us fans. We love us some Gorosaurus, don't we? Anyways, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, because I hopefully will enjoy editing it. I can always hope, at least. Please remember to follow the guidance of the road signs at the bottom of the screen. I did update the product descriptions of all of my merchandise at current, such that no one can claim that I'm trying to conceal the fact that I use artificially intelligent derived artwork for all of it, including the shirt that I am wearing right now. But regardless of all that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and took it easy while you watched, relishing in the glory of our boy Gorosaurus. And until next time, guys, I will catch you on the flip side.
King, I want to do some king.